Hello, this is Kenny Lee Burgess, and I'm making this video in response to the many emails I get asking how do you go about buying a vintage Resonator guitar. Now, I would suggest not making your first Resonator guitar vintage instrument. I would suggest maybe buying an entry-level instrument. And an entry-level instrument is the instruments that are mostly sold in the guitar stores. They're, you know, priced kind of reasonably, and they're for beginners or even for the seasoned player who wants a guitar that they can take out onto the street. You know, they usually run in the $500 to $1,000 price range. And I would suggest that you visit my friend Frank at republicguitars.com and make sure you mention that Kenny Lee sent you, because he'll probably give you a nice little discount. But these are nice instruments and a great place to start. But I understand if you want to buy vintage, and because I love vintage too, but there's some issues we should talk about. Okay, so let's go from the beginning here. The first thing is, back in the 30s, when they built guitars, they didn't put in a metal truss rod in the neck. There was no support rod. So what happens over time is the neck bows. It'll pitch forward like this. And of course that makes the strings move away from the fingerboard, so you can't fret notes, or the intonation's all screwed up, so it doesn't play in tune. So there is a way to fix this, and they call this a neck reset, where they actually remove the neck and repitch it to a different angle. But it's kind of a half-assed job, and sometimes very hard to get a guitar builder or a guitar technician to do it, because, you know, it's a lot of work, it's tricky, and sometimes it doesn't come out really well, so the customer's not going to be happy. But it can be repaired. But that's really the major issue. You know, a lot of times they'll sell these guitars as, they'll say, as bottleneck guitars because the action is high. And you can play them that way as long as, you know, you just play all the notes with the slide and you use your ear to kind of line up the notes so they sound right. So you can do that. And I suspect that back in the day, that's why they played a lot of slide on their laps, you know, because if you had a guitar that you couldn't play any other way, lap definitely does work. But anyway, that's the major problem. Some other considerations are in the sense that a lot of the other stuff can be easily repaired. Cracks, they can be recleated. Resonator cones, if they're crushed, they can be replaced, about $50. A new bridge to be cut and reinstalled, I don't know, another $100 to have that work done. I mean, I would tell you that whenever you buy a vintage instrument, assume that it's going to need some work. You know, if you have the opportunity to go to a store and play the instrument, that's fantastic. But most of the instruments I've bought sight unseen via the internet. So if you go that route, you know, you got to be a little brave and expect the worst. You know, I was watching the last clip prior to making this clip, and I dawned on me I should mention this to you. You know, when the neck lifts on a regular guitar, it's a problem. You can't fret the notes. But there's an extra special problem that happens with a resonator guitar. The neck pitches forward. Not only does the action get higher, but it removes that downward pressure on the cone. You got to remember, those strings are pressing down on that cone to make it vibrate correctly. If you don't have that correct downward pressure, it's not going to ring right. It's going to rattle and make all kinds of bad sounds. So that's a major consideration about resonator guitars with the bowed neck. But anyway, let me talk about this guitar a little bit. This guitar was made by Kay, but it has a little interesting history in the sense that Kay, back in the 1930s, was making wooden bodies for National Guitar. They found it cheaper to just buy wooden bodies from other manufacturers than to make them themselves, because they're making metal body guitars. But so this is basically the National El Trovador, which was made between 32 and 33, less than a year, I believe. But it's very similar. The only difference is because it was being sold by Kay, they put a different cover plate on it and a different tailpiece and possibly also different tuners. But you see, this is the point. When you're buying a vintage instrument, you're trying to buy it as original as possible. So certainly an 80-year-old guitar that's been sitting in a beautiful climate-controlled room for 80 years is going to cost a lot of money. These guitars were played. So many times you're going to get guitars that are not going to have the original parts. Maybe the tuners will be replaced. But you know, it's all up to you how much you want to restore it. You could buy nice tuners that are good replicas of the 1930s, cover plates too, cones easy to replace. But again, you don't want to like refinish it. I mean, you want to keep that original scratches and stuff. You know, you see the Antique Roadshow, they tell you all the time, you know, condition, condition, condition. And the last thing you want to do is take an 80-year-old finish on a guitar and try to make it look brand new. Actually, the value goes way down. So I mean, like I said, if you're looking for this brand new perfect thing, buy a new guitar, you know. And again, like a professional level instrument, you're talking, they usually start like $2,000 to $3,000. There you're talking like a nice National Resophonic or, you know, better guitars. You're going to be real happy with that. But again, if you're into this vintage vibe, you got to be a little open-minded. So I hope this answered some questions, and please feel free to write me if you have any questions or you're looking at an instrument, you want some ideas, because like I said, I bought some clams over the years, so I've learned my lesson over different things. So I'd be happy to help you out. Thanks a lot and enjoy.